some point in your life, you're going to challenge yourself on some level. And when fear shows up, that's a great invitation to let you know that here's an opportunity to challenge yourself.
Hi, this is Paul Rosenberg. Welcome again to the Rogue Leadership Channel. And today we have another great interview as a part of our Influencers and Innovators series. Today we have the honor of speaking with Josh Miller. He's a best-selling Amazon author of I Call BS, Live Your Life, Not Someone Else's. He's a trainer, a coach, one of the most influential people on LinkedIn right now, an infinite source of wisdom, and in my words, an all-around Yoda. So I'm just excited to have Josh here. And Josh, welcome to the channel. Appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul. I appreciate it. I appreciate the kind introduction. I don't think Yoda has ever been associated with my name, but I am deeply honored. I'll take that. I'll run with it, and hopefully I don't mess it up.
I don't think you can, my friend.
Right.
So a lot to cover today, and I
Sure.
wanted to first talk about, for people who haven't read your book, and we'll talk a little bit more about the book later.
Sure.
What got you into coaching? What was that that moment that kind of took this path in a different direction that has resulted in an amazing part of your journey here on the planet?
Yeah, well, so I wrote about this in my book. I started off my career actually as a creative director at a global advertising agency. And I was very fortunate and very lucky and successful at a very young age, very quickly. But I realized at the ripe age of around 23, 24, I was miserable and I needed a change. I just did not know what it was. And as fate would have it, I was walking out of my office one day on a Friday afternoon, and I literally tripped. I got knocked by somebody, wasn't paying attention. I fell on the ground. And after fracturing my nose in two places, a woman came by and helped me. And out of 8 million people in all of New York City, she happened to be an executive coach. So I don't know what the odds are of that, but when I tell people I literally fell into coaching, I literally fell into coaching because this individual helped me. And keep in mind, having been, born and raised growing up in New York City, you're kind of taught not to talk to strangers, even if you're lying dead in the middle of the street and you've got a fractured nose. But I took this lady's generosity and kindness. She helped me, she picked me up, dusted me off, and we started speaking. And as soon as she started talking, everything about her, I wanted to know more. I wanted to know how she had this energy, this presence. And she said, I'm a coach. And I said, for what team? I've no, what sports? And she said, no, not that kind of coach. I'm an executive coach. After the conversation unraveled, I realized everything that she had is what I wanted. And so I actually asked her to come in the ambulance with me to the hospital so we could continue the conversation. And then finally, once I got to the hospital, she said, look, here's my number, call me when if you want to continue this conversation. The next day with, black eyes, gauze in my nose, I met her at a coffee shop. We talked for another 3 hours, and she basically helped me map out, how do I get my life from the creative world into the world of servicing others and developing leaders. And the way and the vehicle I got there was through coaching. And that was really my entryway into learning and development, talent development, leadership development, speaking, writing a book, and so on and so forth. So that's that. I talk about it in my book, but that's how I did it.
Super. Thanks for that great story, and a reminder about sometimes things happen and you don't know why they happen, but good things happen afterwards. I'd like to, as you know, I'm an author, I'm an ex-comic, I'm an ex-improv guy. So the whole creative process really fascinates me. What was it, a moment that drove you to write this amazing book, or was it just a series of events that kind of moved the needle for you to sit down and start creating that process?
Yeah. It's a great question. So for me, I'm an avid reader. I typically read 2 to 3 books a month. I don't know where I find the time for it. I've learned with technology, I do audiobooks a lot because I'm driving in my car a lot. But what happened, there was a moment in time where I was approached by a publisher to write a book. And they basically wanted me to write a book on leadership development. And I said no. And people thought I was crazy. But my reasoning to me was pretty sound, which is I think there's enough leadership books out there. I did not think that I needed to muddy the water with something that was going to be regurgitated, even if I could put a spin on it. So, I closed that chapter, so to speak. And then a couple years later, I was at a bookstore with my wife and one of my kids, and I'm looking through all these self-help types of books. And my youngest child at the time said, Daddy, where's your book? And I thought, oh boy, okay. Well, I said, I don't have one. He goes, why not? You got to love kids who are roughly around, 3 years old, because there's no filter there. And I looked at my wife, and later that day, my wife and I spoke, and she goes, what are you waiting for? And I just said, you know what, you're right. Now's the time. And that's when I really started the process. Because I just got to a point where I could continue to read everyone else's books, and look for my narrative within their language and their story, or I could actually write my own. And I'm really, really grateful, supremely grateful for writing the book, but more importantly, allowing myself, and I think all authors as yourself would know this, is to allow yourself the journey. It is a very cathartic process to write a book, or to write in general, and to put yourself out there in a way that will live forever. It can be quite exhilarating, and it can be quite challenging, but ultimately I look back at the experience, the conversation, and I'm proud of what I put out there.
In the book, I love the book, by the way.
Thank
It's
you very
got
much.
so many golden nuggets. So there's a couple of things that really struck me when I read it. I hope I get this quote right. Don't
Yeah.
be afraid to dream big.
Yep.
Be afraid of not dreaming. And
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you to kind of dive deeper into that in terms of how fear keeps us from really realizing our full potential. That whole thing about
Sure.
dreaming, and maybe having that dream and going, well, I'll never, or I can't, or people around you saying it'll never happen, it's a pipe dream,
Yeah.
stop living in the stars. So what's your response to that for our viewers?
Yeah. My response is feel the fear. Right? We're often taught, and our brains are hardwired to avoid it, avoid uncertainty, avoid the fear. But I was that kid. If my parents said, "Don't touch the pot, it's hot," I'd walk over to the pot and I'd go touch it. I touch it. I touch it. I'd see how long could I touch it? Is it really that hot? Now, I'm not asking anybody to go and do that, but what I'm saying is that at some point in your life, you're going to challenge yourself on some level. And when fear shows up, that's a great invitation to let you know that here's an opportunity to challenge yourself. Be alive, right? Feel the fear, and approach it, obviously responsibly so. And I think for me, growing up in New York City, where it's everybody has a startup, everybody has a dream. But I've also learned that where you live, your environment is so critical, because there's a lot of cynical people out there. There just are. There are a lot of people that will not want you to succeed because they're afraid they couldn't do it on their own, or they're jealous, or they're envious. And I talk about this in the book, that it's really important to have a support structure and people in your orbit that are going to enable you to achieve that success and overcome that fear. So when I say dream big, yeah, you should dream big, but you should also look at who are you sharing that dream with, right? Because as quick as you have that dream, it can die the moment you tell the wrong person. So I invite all of your listeners that if you have a dream, or if you have some idea, or you have some goal, or you have something that you've been sitting on that keeps you up at night, find somebody that will support you to move forward, even if it's one little action, one step, because sometimes that's all it takes. That's all you need to break past that fear. So that's what I would offer up.
Wise words. So you had that one person who helped you when you broke your nose, and they're out there. So just
They are.
great advice.
Sure.
Another concept that you talk about, I'm all about simplification in the
Yeah.
workplace, particularly, and the leaders that I work with. It's all about really getting them to get the clutter out of their lives and the noise.
Yeah.
You have a great phrase. You call it decomplexification.
Yeah.
And for our listeners and viewers, kind of tell us what that is and how do we go about doing that without, totally doing a 180? How do we slowly get that muscle of
Yeah.
simplification back into our lives?
It's a great question. So, in the spirit of making things very, very simple, here is what you need to do. Look at the four areas of your life. And these are the same four areas for every single person on the planet, which is your career, your relationship to self and others, your wellness, and your finances. And make a list and find all the things that are currently not working for you or not supporting your happiness, your greatness, or success. And then I would invite every person to choose one thing that they can take on either a week or a month or a day, not an hour. Let's not be too ambitious here. And ask yourself, what's one action that I can take that will start to, um, you know, declutter or simplify that gap, that area of focus or interest? Because if you wrote it down, and I want to stress, I'm a big believer in getting a pen or paper and pencil and writing things down, right? Because we all know that it helps the mind start to actually take things that are internal and make them come to life. I would look at what is the thing you put down there, because that is what's most important to you. If you wrote it down, it's important to you. Now, what's one small action, not huge, one small action you can take that's going to start to close the gap? That is how you declutter. Because when people do these radical transformations, right? People say, I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to go to the gym on January 2nd. I'm going to start drinking kale every day, right? We all know that it's not sustainable. We all know, habitually speaking, there's always a backslide to that. So starting off small, being realistic, but again, and I can't stress this enough, I talk about it in my book, have a support structure that is sufficient for the game that you're playing. That is so, so critical.
Thank you for that. Now,
Yeah.
everybody, hopefully you are writing down what Josh just said. And by the way, I'm a living example. I do drink kale every day.
Yeah.
It's a miracle. Uh, let's talk about what you're currently doing on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I want you to
Sure.
let our viewers know about your LinkedIn Live and then
Yeah.
we'll wrap up with a couple of more questions and let you get
Sure.
on with your busy day.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So I'm very, very excited. I joined LinkedIn maybe 5, 6 years ago. I can't really remember. And, I talk about LinkedIn like it's the universe, right? There's different galaxies that live within the universe, different planets. And this is all kind of a metaphor, analogy with you for people and networking. Because every day you can meet somebody that you've never met before that's been on the platform for 10 years, right? And you may have a lot of synergy with them. So when I joined, my intention was very clear. How can I inspire, motivate, and develop as many people as possible with the reach of the platform? So my kind of methodology at the time was be consistent, be clear, and be creative in my content. And what I was doing was I was actually writing an original article every week for 2 years straight. Every week I would sit down, I would come up with something, and I would write something. That's actually how I started to get into writing. On LinkedIn right now, I'm very excited because I have a show on LinkedIn Live called Coach's Corner, Conversations for Emerging Leaders. And similar to my book premise, I'm all about taking the ethereal, the complex, and really making it easy to understand for the mental palate, will you? So it just launched a couple weeks ago. It airs at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesdays, and I'm going to be ramping up with more episodes throughout the week. But each week, I'm going to be looking at a very specific topic or theme that resonates for two reasons. One, because I've asked my LinkedIn audience what they would like to hear about, and two, when it talk about emerging leaders, the World Economic Forum, as of 2020, has stated that there is about 10 critical skills that all individual leaders will need to have. So my mission, if you want to call it that, is to look at all of these different kind of skills or trades and bring them to the forefront on my show and have people who are authorities and subject matter experts like yourself talk about how do you take these things and apply them in real life. So that's what the show is all about.
Yeah, I missed the first one, but I'm definitely going to be on there a lot. So don't want
Appreciate
to miss
it.
that opportunity, Josh. So let's wrap up. I have a
Yeah,
couple of.
sure.
This is a
Go
question
for
I
it.
ask everybody on the Innovator and Influencer series. What did you want to be when you were growing up? Like, I know you love hip hop, so if you tell me you want to be a rapper, that's fine. We're cool with that.
Yeah.
I'm down with
Yeah.
that, homie, if that's the way you're going. But like,
Well,
what
that's
did you
that.
want to be like when you were like 8 or 9 years old?
So the first thing I wanted to be when I was about 5 years old was a frog. And when I couldn't be a frog, I cried for about 2 days in my room. I would not eat, I didn't eat any food. My parents were very concerned about me because one of my favorite books was Toad and Frog growing up. And I thought, wow, these two are best friends. They hang out all the time, they go on all these adventures. If I was a frog, I could probably hang out with them and live my life like they do. Well, obviously, I couldn't be a frog. So naturally, I did the next best thing is I wanted to be a ninja because I thought, all right, this is cool. I can during the day I can do everything I normally do, and then as I at nighttime I can go out and I can go help people and do all that cool stuff. But honestly, what I wanted to do was I wanted to be a talk show host. That's actually what I wanted to be. I know that is. I love speaking with people. I love interviewing people. I am so innately curious, and there's no better way to do that than to get into deep conversations with people. And so from the earliest of ages, I would, after dinner, sitting at the dinner table with my brother and my mother and my father, I would set up a little kind of like lemonade type of stand. I would get the ladle out of the kitchen. I would put on a jacket and a tie, and I would do these kind of mock interviews. And my mother, my father, and my brother would be the audience. And I even had this applause sign that I would hold up, and I would say, go into commercial break. And I mean, I did the whole thing for like 20 or 30 minutes. And then I started watching, Johnny Carson when I was younger. And it was just great. I mean, and to this day, as you can tell, I love working with people. I love getting people to open up. And so that was my
A dream fulfilled. This is awesome.
thing.
Last question
Yeah,
for you, and
go for
then
it.
I want
Yeah.
to let people know where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah.
What's the one thing, the one piece of advice you'd give to leaders who want to be powerful, who want to be transformational? What's the one thing they need to do to kind of have an impact in their work, in the world? What's that one thing?
Listen more, speak less. 100%. Too often we try, and unsuccessfully, to clutter up the silence, the intimacy between ourselves, our internal dialogue, but also other people. And as a coach, what I've learned, and I'm sure you know this too as a coach, is that if you think you're speaking too much, you probably are, right? And we should be listening more, listening to ourselves, listening to others, and listening not just for the content, but listen for the context. Understand where people are coming from. When you can truly understand and connect with people, that's when you can actually create transformation, both within people's lives, in organizations, on a scale that may be bigger than you thought was possible. But it all comes from just listening. And so I would tell everyone out there, leader, not leader, whatever you identify yourself as, start listening more and speaking less.
Perfect. As always, with a profound clarity, Josh, you have this this magic touch. So, last question, and I'll let you go.
Yeah,
How can people get a hold of you? Where can they find you?
sure. Yeah, absolutely. There's two ways. It's very simple. On LinkedIn, Joshua Miller. But you can also go to my website, and that is Josh, middle initial H, last name Miller. So it's joshhmiller.com. And all my social handles are there. You can contact me for whatever reason you want to. But my website and LinkedIn are the best places to reach me. And I just want to thank you again, Paul, for having me on here. It's a pleasure. We've been actually, what your viewers don't know is that you and I have been connected for a while. You have been a huge supporter of my work, my message for a long time. I love your book, and I tell people all the time, go get Paul's book, and everyone listening should already have the book. And we've been working on this for a while, trying to get us connected with our busy schedules. So just thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh. We're grateful as well. Take care. Have a great day ahead. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Josh Miller. We'd like to do a giveaway of his book, I Call BS, Live Your Own Life, Not Someone Else's. So please make sure you leave some commentary down below in the comment section. Let us know your thoughts on the video, on Josh's wisdom, and anything else you'd like to put down there. And we'll pick a random winner out of the folks who leave comments again. So if you'd like to be in the running for a copy of his amazing book, leave your comments down below. Thanks for listening and watching, and make sure you hit the subscribe button. See you next time.